what comes to your mind when I say the word volunteering? So you probably have an image of altruistic activities or services provided for certain communities for no financial gain. And that's more than true. But the thing is that every coin has two sides, and so does volunteering. So today I would like to reveal that other side of the volunteering that reflects not the idea of giving, but the effect of taking. So to be more specific, I will talk about volunteer travel and international volunteering experience, volunteering travel that I personally have experienced. So these two sides respectively reflect positive and negative impact. So what's wrong with volunteer travel, you ask? Let me share my experience and some trends that I've seen in order to answer this question and discuss different approaches. So in the last few years, I've engaged myself in several projects based in Kenya and Ghana. And even though these experiences based in these two countries, they were not the same. They were quite the same, actually. Yeah. But the experience in Ghana is an example that will make you understand the international volunteering and the controversy of this international volunteering better. So back in 2012, I was a 12th grade student, just wondering about the possibilities I could take after graduating, when one day an idea popped into my head: why not go to Africa to save the world? So it sounded like a totally crazy goal for me, but the more I was thinking about it, the more I was sure that this goal had to be achieved to make somebody's life better and to just look for the answers, what I wanted to do in life when I come back. So it took me more than half a year to finally find an appropriate project that was fully funded and safe. But during that time, honestly, I was not truly interested in African region itself. I did not know much about its history, economy, politics, or culture. And to be honest, there were so many stereotypes in my head, and the image of poverty, dirt, privatism, it was also clear and true, and so it seemed that I was the one who was meant to change it. So the day came, and here I was in a small town of eastern Ghana called Begoro, trying to settle in and start my volunteering practice in a school/orphanage for the following 9 months. So to be honest, the first few months were more than challenging for me, because I was totally shocked by the different mentality and different perspective of the people. So gradually I became obsessed with the idea to just improve everything what was around me, starting like how the education system was working, or I don't know how the children were treated. So the day came, and here it is, the orphanage, the place where I was volunteering. So arguing with the principal about the lack of facilities provided for children and the need of improvement was a daily task for me, and also for other volunteers. So we were questioning, and we were asking to change so many things, but it seemed that nobody was listening to us. So what did I do? So every morning I just woke up at 6 o'clock, and I started preparing the small ones for the school where I was teaching music and helping with other subjects. After the school finished, I had piano lessons with the older ones, and duties like washing, supervising, cleaning were also included in my daily list. But the thing is that despite of the fact that I sometimes felt physically and mentally exhausted, I still felt that I was not doing enough. So nobody had ever told me how much effort I should be putting in my work. And of course, the locals were happy that we volunteers, we reduced the amount of work that normally had to be done by the local people, but nobody seemed to really appreciate our work or listen to our complaints and ideas. So then gradually I started to doubt my involvement in the community. So while my friends were thinking that I was the one who would rewrite the history of Africa, and my grandparents and grandmothers, they were like worried with the thought of me starving from hunger and never coming back. And off topic, I gained 9 kilos. So then I realized that my all good intentions and plans to change the world just were about to fail. So this organization that I was part of seemed to accept as many volunteers at a time as possible, and it did not matter if somebody came for 1 week, 2 weeks, or a month. So there were times when we were even 10 volunteers, and it did not matter that not everyone had the possibility to get involved in the project because we were just too many. So we started asking ourselves, what's the point? What was the point of accepting this many volunteers if there's not so many things that we can do? So it soon became clear that it's all because of the funds the organization was receiving from the Western world, but we did not see any significant changes after the organization got paid loads of money. So this organization was established for financial gain and not for the needs of the orphans, who even though seemed so pure and honest, they were traumatized and isolated at the same time because of their fate of not having normal families. So one day, a young woman came to the orphanage. She was carrying a bag full of clothes and shoes, and she went to a 5-year-old girl. She greeted her, kissed her, talked for a while, and then she left. And the small girl, she was crying all day after saying goodbye. So I was surprised to see how this situation had evolved and went to the staff members to ask, who was that woman? So they replied that it was her mom. But aren't they real orphans? Like, why are they here then? So after a moment of not saying a word, staff members replied that children chose to come and live in the orphanage by themselves. I mean, a 5-year-old choosing to live separately from her parents. So something was not clear to me, and I wanted to find out what was really going on. So let me share some facts with you. So orphanage tourism is one of the most popular voluntary sectors. In the last few years, there have been several investigations that show that orphanage tourism is a very questionable way of serving local communities in the developing world. So only 1/4 of the children who are living in the orphanage had no living parents. Others were mostly coming from poor or young families and were approached by the owner of the organization to boost the number of the donations and funds coming from the Western world. So many institutions like this separate the children from their families. And so also we can see it that volunteer, if we just Google it, so volunteer orphanage work in Africa, we can see that there are more than 500,000 of possibilities and opportunities and choices. So the thing is that the trend is really growing. The volunteer tourism in the orphanages, it's really growing trend. So without me, another few long-term volunteers, there were also a bunch of short-term volunteers. But we were all trying to make the most of our time, combining voluntary service with exploring the region and traveling. So yeah, despite of altruistic intentions, we were trying to interact with local people, just traveling around or just like relaxing at the beach on the weekends. And it could seem, from this point of view, it could seem like a really good way to just run away from the frustrations that the project had brought. But when we came back, the children seemed so happy, and they were hoping that we would never leave the place anymore. They were often asking us, would we ever come back if we leave? So there is one more thing to add. Volunteering and volunteerism would not exist without someone's suffering. So how how the child feels seeing these volunteers coming and going. Every time one of the volunteer leaves, a child feels abandoned all over again. And as we disappear, we leave another scar, right? So there is a Zambian saying, it takes a whole village to raise a child. So before coming, I was surprised about the fact that orphanages do exist in Africa, but I was still thinking that these children who live in these orphanages were no doubt real orphans, and they were protected by the whole community from all the dangers that could be faced during childhood. Yeah, so before we are going to help, we have to question ourselves. So we have to think critically and realize that. So the organizations. So we have to learn before we're going to help. So yeah, sorry, and there are some organizations that are driven by profit, and some of them do accept volunteers without any skills that are relevant when coping with children, with people with disabilities or special needs. For example, me, an 18-year-old student, I did not have any pedagogical skills, I did not have any knowledge about how the education system was working in Ghana, but still, I was allowed to teach on my first day of school. So another issue I was facing, cultural differences. So not knowing anything about the different environment, about different perspectives and social heritage of the local community, a volunteer, he usually tries to adapt his own way of living to a society that sees everything in a different light. So during my service, I had an opportunity to meet an older volunteer couple. And even though they were good as heart, they were also facing the same differences, the same issues of cultural differences as I did in the beginning. But the difference was that they had money and they had power. But gradually, the older man, he replaced the local principal and started to lead the institution. So we volunteers and other staff members, we were controlled and we were being assigned tasks. So, of course, they were also doing some great things, like they were installing electricity, but they were not only they did not only want to improve the living conditions, they also wanted to change the cultural customs. The thing is that I did not see the point of changing these things anymore. And, but I want to show you not working. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this, there's this scene from the movie, and I just wanted to show you there was like a small part of it. Okay, so they were always asking us and questioning us like that we were not ready for this kind of project and we were lacking experience. So the thing is that volunteering knows no age limit. But they were right about one thing, that we did not have enough skills to interact with children, but as a matter of fact, neither did they. So there was a scene of movie from A Problem Child, there's a 90s comedy movie, and that scene shows, so there is a boy called Junior, and he lives in this Catholic orphanage, and one day a young family appears and they decide to adopt this child. And there is a scene in the movie where the boy leaves the orphanage and all the nuns just become so overwhelmed and relieved because he's left the orphanage. So it's hilarious, and so was the moment when the couple left. So all the struggles and all the effort they were putting in the project, they became useless. And we and other staff members, we finally felt relieved and free from all the demands and all the control. So flexible attitude and open-minded attitude as well, and international communication come together with effectiveness and gratitude. So I can't put all the blame on this specific organization because it's more complex, and it also involves the organizations coming from the Western world. And the problem is that these organizations, they do not know enough about the environment, about the culture of the organizations. So again, the conflict emerges. So I was told that there would be only 10 children, but then when I came, there were 40, again, excluding 100 who were coming to school every day. And again, I was told that I would have a month to think about the possibilities. How could I get involved in the whole project? But as I mentioned before, I was already teaching on my first day of school. So it's all because we have these different kind of perspectives and different worldviews, and we lack knowledge. We lack knowledge, and we lack respect. And it's like a never-ending cycle that produces all these kind of volunteering organizations and volunteering projects that just do not function as they should. Yeah, so before we give, we have to think critically and take steps to improve ourselves before we make a positive contribution to the wider world. So we have to be willing to interact with local people, and we have to be willing to change ourselves. We have to get to know customs and environment and history, and we have to devote more time than only a few weeks in order to make a positive contribution and positive impact to the wider world. And of course, we also have to ask ourselves, what kind of transferable skills do we have to offer? So yeah, who's the one giving? So we were always speaking English with the children, therefore they could improve their English language skills. Some of them learned how to play piano, or some of them learned things like knitting and just like washing their clothes properly. But then we left, another volunteers came, and it just all started all over again. So before we give, we have to think about the possibilities. How can we improve ourselves? And we have to interact with local people and be willing to change not only the community we are surrounded by, but we also have to improve ourselves. So I'm definitely not trying to scare you off from volunteering or from volunteering service, international volunteering. It's simply we have to examine the consequences for the people we strive to help before we engage ourselves in the voluntary services, because it often could turn out that we are solving only our own consciousness. So just let's be driven by our empathy and not with our sympathy, and just let's learn. Let's be ready to learn. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this, I must say, really powerful talk. And that's something I will remember for sure. And there seems to be a lot of misuse of, for example, volunteering and other kind of problems. Where does it come from? How come there's so much fraud and, I don't know, being so double-faced from the organizations? Where does it coming from?
I think it's again because of the miscommunication about this significant portion of miscommunication between the communities, between the different cultures. So as I said, my organization, for example, they did not communicate with the organization in Ghana, so they did not know enough about that organization, and neither did I. So when I went there, I was so confused, and I was questioning myself about so many things. So that's why I came there, and I was shocked by so many things because I was not accordingly prepared for that. I was not assigned for that role. So, yeah.
And connecting with the first presentation, there seems to be a zero level of accountability from the organizations, but you seem to prosper with an amazing amount of accountability. Where do you think this is coming from you? Why do you feel the need to go somewhere and fix the problems when you can just simply, close your eyes?
I think it's all because you're also questioning yourself, but you just don't know that it's all because of you. You want to see yourself in that kind of place, and you want to look for the answers. So that was also me, because before I went, I thought I'm the only one and I will do it, and that's for sure. But when I went there, I finally I realized that I'm the one who had to change my perspective and not the local people that I was a part of. So yeah, it's really hard thing to do, and actually, but I'm happy that I devoted more time to be there, not only like few weeks to realize, because there were some volunteers who came for a few weeks and they were just traveling around and they did not see any problems, nothing. They were just happy with the things that they were. So.
Would you do again something like that?
International volunteering, actually, I'm not sure about that, because I really have to question everything. You have to know so many things about the organization and how can you improve that kind of things that they're going. So I don't know. I would have to think about that, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Warm applause and thank you very much.